Feeling a little Xena warrior princess right now. Oh, gotta hydrate, gotta hydrate. Hey guys, my name is Summer Meyers. I'm a homeschool mom of 5 kids, and today I wanted to talk to you about our science curriculum and what we used this year and things that worked, what didn't work, and hopefully give you an idea of what you can use in your own homeschool that will help you guys out. That's the plan. Let's do this. The science curriculum that we use, that we're almost finished up with, is The Human Body from The Good and the Beautiful. This was a really stellar curriculum. We really enjoyed it. We haven't quite finished it yet. We still have a couple of chapters left, but I feel like we have a pretty good handle on it, and I kind of wanted to jump in and show you exactly what we used. So The Good and the Beautiful's website is broken up to, you can just order it on PDF and download it. It's cheaper. Or you can have them send it to you in like a saran wrap group. So I've obviously opened this up. We've been using it already for several weeks now, so I can't show you how it was wrapped up, but they do a really good job with it. But it is not a book. I like to do is grab a binder and I hole punch inside of it and then just pop it straight into that. Works really well. When I am done with it, I take it out of the binder and I'll wrap it up, and then I'll resell it at my local homeschool store, or I will pass it on to another homeschool family that is interested in it. I go through the binder, I find out all of the extras that go with the lesson. I photocopy all of those, whether that be worksheets, whether that be vocab words, whether that be little mini books, and I photocopy them out in advance before we've even started the curriculum. And then I put them all in a folder. I don't like cutting up, even though it's just loose paper and we're using it and I bought it. I don't like the idea of cutting up pretty textbooks, even if it's in just a binder. So I do photocopy mine so it's in really good condition when I potentially resell it or when I'm giving it off to somebody else. And I photocopy the books in color so it's nice and pretty and we can enjoy it. My kids also like carrying these around and reading them upstairs in their room, and I feel like I don't have to have that copy right here. It doesn't bother me if we get water on it or anything, because I know I can just reprint it out. Now in my folder here, I have all of the little worksheets that it wants us to do, as well as all the vocab words. A lot of people who use the Good and the Beautiful science curriculum, I've seen them put their vocabulary words on a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and if you have that, fabulous. That's what you're going to want to do with it. But for me personally, I do not have that because I don't have the space. So what I do is I create a big poster board. I put little clip art graphics. I love to watercolor, so I do some watercolor sometimes. And it's just a big empty poster board. Each time we came to a new vocab word, which it goes through in each lesson, we would pull out our bag of vocab words and they would read them out and we'd talk and discuss them, and then we'd get glue sticks out and then they can glue it onto the actual poster board. And it's kind of like a big deal in our house who gets to paste the new vocab word on our poster board. So, for that reason, I don't mind it being on a poster rather than on a pretty blackboard. So it has a list of things at the beginning of the book of if you're going to be cooking anything that has lists of ingredients, if you're going to be making any kind of a model or anything, it's got a list of those things as well. So you can gather those before your school year even starts. And that's what I do. I have it all packed away in a big box. And then when we get to that particular lesson, I can just pull all that stuff up. So the beginning of each lesson, it goes through objectives about what you want to accomplish at the end of it. It also has preparations, things that you need to get in advance. So typically they'll have a little section at the beginning of each lesson or in the middle saying, read your read aloud that you have chosen for your subject. So after you have your optional read aloud, then they go back into the main lesson. Then we talk about vocab words. And then afterwards, they typically have some kind of little modeling activity or something fun that they can do to help, like a hands-on activity. I wouldn't say they did that for every single lesson. So the thing with The Good and the Beautiful is that it's very gentle in all of its approach. It does a really good job talking about the different systems, and it has occasional videos that you can look at, and it's got a bunch of worksheets and fun little activities to do, but it can be rather dry. So with this, I also bought The Human Body, Get Under the Skin with Science Activities for Kids. This is Nomad Press. I just discovered this publishing company. This book, I think, is probably the closest thing we have to an actual read aloud. And it breaks down into the same kind of sections. It pairs really nicely with this book. So I highly, highly recommend that if you do The Human Body, this book does a really good job going along with it. I think the thing about this book is that it clarifies and it helps them retain the information. That's the word. It helps them retain the information that we had just talked about in our original lesson in The Good and the Beautiful. So it's a refresher. We go over it and then they're like, oh yes, I remember this part. And it's easier for them to answer questions afterwards if we have anything that they want to get in more depth with. And this book is fantastic. It has a bunch of QR codes within it. So if you've got a QR reader on your phone, highly recommend using them. But I think the main reason why we got it is because of the activities at the end of each little lesson that it does in here. So it goes through and breaks down the different systems or whatever, and then it has an activity that you can do. Some of these are rather advanced. So if you have young elementary school kids, think kindergarten, first grade, second grade, it might be too much for them. But I have a third and fifth grader, and all of the activities were not too difficult for them. In fact, I just gave them all the materials that they needed to do for that particular experiment or whatever that they were recreating. And then I went and made lunch. And this was fantastic for them because it pushed them to explore and to follow directions and to, mimic what they just learned about with tools. We did a lung activity where they had to recreate the lungs and the diaphragm and make a balloon fill up with air inside of a soda bottle. And they did it all by themselves. I said, hey, here's a list of all the things we need. It looks like we have all of them. Have at it. And they literally just did the whole thing by themselves. And they were super proud of themselves. It was great empowerment. So look into this book if you're getting The Good and the Beautiful Human Body. Also with this, they have a optional read aloud. The Good and the Beautiful has lists of books for pretty much every single subject that they have, of books that they recommend you read to your children. They're good lists. Don't get me wrong. I like their lists and I think they put a lot of thought and effort into them. There's so many used bookstores in our area that for me personally, it makes more sense for me to go to one of those and find a cheap option rather than finding that particular book, right? I also like unit studies and I like putting those things together. So if you do not have the time, brain space, more power to you. They have lists of suggestions that you can go and pick out for yourself. For me personally, I tend to go and free range person, free lifestyle. Nobody can control this gal. So none of these were like super expensive. I'm going to link them down below, but if they're like $10, don't do it. Like go out and find stuff that you can incorporate, but maybe they perk your interest. So I'm going to include them. Okay. That's my disclaimer here. I got this one. It's called The Human Body. It's so cute. It's a scholastic reader and it goes through in a preschool young child appropriate about how the human body works. I will say at the very beginning, it does talk about how a human body is formed fetus style, pregnancy. And there's a picture of a little family. The human body begins to form when two cells, one from the mother and one from the father, join to make one special single cell. This is called fertilization. That's in there, okay? But, beyond that, I think that's very gentle. I think that's a good thing. All good things. I thought this was something that my young preschooler would really appreciate, and it was something special for her for when we were talking about a big kid subject. The next book that I got, this is the Dover coloring book. I don't know if you all are familiar with these coloring books, but these are fabulous. I find them everywhere. They're very popular and you can find them for pretty much every subject. This one is the human body, and inside is just coloring pages. And this I do for my young preschooler when I just need her something to color. I'll photocopy some of these. Again, I don't like coloring in books. I'd rather just like photocopy it. So get a nice printer. It's a good way of breaking it down and like, can you color the brain a certain color? Can you color, let's see, can you point out where the tongue would be, where the ears here? I mean, like, so it gives them a chance to almost manipulate how they're the inside of their body and focusing on particular parts. So I really liked this book. We really enjoyed using this, and we used it pretty much every time we did a lesson. The next book that we really enjoyed, this one I think was by far the most helpful book that we used in conjunction to the Good and the Beautiful Science Unit, and that was the Human Anatomy in Full Color. This is by John Green. It was so easy. I mean, just the way it's set up, it was really easy to find that particular body part that we were talking about, or that particular system, like the digestive system or the circulatory system or whatever. It was really easy to look them up and point to the different parts. It's just really well done and well colored out. And showing the ear, how the ear canal, you've got the tiny little eardrum and how it's connected down into the throat. You've got a diagram of the eye. It also, I won't show a picture of it because I'm not quite sure what YouTube will do. It does have a cross-section of the male reproduction system and a cross-section of the woman reproduction system. Something else to consider when looking at human body books. But honestly, this was the best book. I think this one really helped my kids understand how the human body looks underneath. So those are the books that we looked at. They weren't actual like read alouds, but they were books that I left out for them to flip through while we were talking about the different systems or whatever. One of those homeschoolers that likes to do unit studies, and so that's kind of my jam. I like going out and gathering a bunch of things and saying, we're going to do this fantastic unit. And that's why I like the Good and the Beautiful, because I feel like there's a solid framework that I can add and build things into. The Human Body Science Unit absolutely worked for that reason. So here's a couple of the things that I got in addition to these books. Again, this is what I like doing. This is how I build my unit studies. So this, if you are interested in unit studies, then this is kind of how I do it, and maybe that'll help you out. But absolutely do not feel like if you just want an open and go program, this is an open and go. You do not need any of this extra stuff. I just like making my life complicated. I got a stethoscope because we're doing the human body. But this was a cheap little stethoscope. Man, stethoscopes are expensive. I was looking online and I'm like, are there any that are below 20 bucks? I mean, this is kind of just a fun thing that I wanted to do. I didn't want to like, have a real heavy duty medical one, but apparently, anyway, so I got this one. I can't remember how much I ended up spending on it, but whatever it was well worth the money, and I would not spend any more on it than what I actually did. It's just a cheap one that works. I don't think it's got like a double med, but it's got the little sound, and they had so much fun, not only listening to their heart, but also listening to them breathing. They also listened to like the walls, and they tried to listen to the cat. I mean, like they went all out with it. So this was a lot of fun, and I didn't mind them swinging it around and bashing it around. Like this, I considered a toy. I really, really wanted models for our human body because I have a couple of kinesthetic learners. They need to move and feel and touch and, whatever in order to have facts really stick into their mind. And so I really wanted to get a bunch of really cool models that they could touch and move around and feel and be like, oh, okay, this is the part and this is where it goes. So we ended up getting the learning resources pack, and I waited. Like I put it on Camel. If you haven't heard of this fabulous website, this is what you use, where you put in an Amazon link and then it tracks the prices for you. So when it dives down, it'll send you an alert and you can rush on there and purchase whatever it is that you want. So but I don't know if this ever went really far enough down. I think I might have spent $50 for all 4 of these. you know, I mean, it was rather expensive. And I can't say that I'm super impressed with the quality. I'm glad that we have it, but I don't think it was worth that much money. But I'm going to show it to you because my kids have loved it and they have used them like crazy. Just, I don't want you to be disappointed if you end up getting it. So this is Alfred, Mr. Bones, Mr. Alfred Bones, I think is what my kids ended up naming him. And what it was it comes in a box. Some of the pieces were put together, but the majority of it wasn't. And I just opened the boxes up and they were so excited to put together this puzzle. And it was good for them to see how all the pieces went. However, my youngest kids got rather frustrated because the pieces were rather small and harder for them to put together. So, you know, but now they really enjoy messing around with him. And sometimes he loses a femur bone or whatever. And they're like, where did it go? Where did his femur go? And that's kind of funny to have them talking about that. And he is always introduced at every family dinner when we have family over or people over, which we don't because it's COVID. We've never had people over. It also came with a human body. They're rather small. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but I mean, he's not even the size of my hand. But you can take him apart and it shows his heart, lungs, liver, stomach, digestive tract. You can see the kidneys are not loose, but they are in there in the back. The thing with this one is that the rib cage kind of holds all of the organs together. So as soon as that pops off, like everything falls down and then you kind of have to mash it back together. So that can be annoying and to worry about. But it also has been good for my kids because it's forced them to like put it together and see how the human body is layered. So, I mean, there's some give and take here. Again, the quality is not fantastic, but I feel like we have enjoyed using this enough that I don't regret the purchase. The other one that we have is the human heart. This came with a stand and my baby snapped it. He really enjoyed holding the heart and carrying this around. So, you know, the stand didn't last, but it still works. I mean, it's, you know, it just stands up by itself. I like this. It shows all 4 chambers when you open it, but all 4 chambers do not stay on there. Like, they will fall to pieces when you are opening and closing it. This was so much fun to put together when it was just a puzzle and the pieces were all loose. But now my kids, see, it just falls off. What a piece of junk. But when we were doing our heart lesson, it was really simple and easy for them to recognize where the blood was coming in, where it was being pumped out, the flow of it. So I like it. I don't think it was worth the money for it. The last one, which we have not touched this at all, it's the brain. And I think part of it is because we haven't had that lesson yet, but they're just not interested in holding it or moving it around or anything. And it doesn't come apart. It's very sturdy. Everything else you can take apart and or move or manipulate. The brain does not. I don't know. I think if I were to go back again and talk to myself, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and buy it because your kids are going to enjoy it. I think literally this is the only thing that's available on market that's an actual model of things meant for children. Because I wasn't sure how the models were going to go off with my preschooler, I got her the Melissa and Doug magnetic person. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. We have a bunch of the princesses. So we have like Ariel and Elsa and whatever. And you can dress up the princesses in their little magnetic clothes or whatever. I'm missing some shoes here, probably underneath a couch. And it comes with a girl or a boy. Their tops look like that, and they are, you know, there's 2 of them, so you can have the boy. This one's got like a light blue outlining, and you've got the girl version here. But they also have the boy and girl bottoms as well. They are anatomically correct. They are very like not graphic. In fact, I'm not quite sure if my preschooler would have even noticed the difference if my older elementary school kids were like, what in the world? The last really cool thing that I was so excited about getting for the human body was a microscope. Yay! It's very affordable for as far as microscopes go. And my kids have just gone ballistic over it. They love it so much. I don't let my young elementary school kids, like my 6 and 4-year-old, just play with it. I like to be present when they do it because, you know, I just don't know what will happen. And I usually like all of our manipulative stuff that I get for a unit study out so they can play with it. But this is the one thing that it's a little bit of a gray area. Mommy needs to be here. It comes with a bunch of slides about plant life, also like fibers. Anyway, it was so much fun, and we really enjoyed using this for our human body. The big takeaway here is that the human body from the good and the beautiful is absolutely an open and go curriculum that you can just use on its own. But it's also really well set up that you can add to it and do with it what makes sense for you and your family. So I like building onto things and I like tacking things on. And this is the stuff that we got to do that. But do not feel like in order for this curriculum to succeed, I have to get all of this extra stuff. You don't. But if you are interested in pursuing it, or if your kids show interest, here's some of the stuff that we used to kind of further those conversations along. The thing with the human body is that little children do not have the ability to express very well. They do not have the words to express very well what they are feeling inside. And giving them the tools and understanding about how their body works, whether that's how they breathe, how they think, how their heart works, that gives them confidence and makes them more comfortable within their own body. So absolutely, if you think you're like, oh, my kids are a little bit young or whatever, this is something any child can do and should do. They should know how their body works. And it helps them feel more comfortable in their own surroundings because they are comfortable within their own skin. So I strongly encourage everybody to study the human body. All right, that is it for today's video. I am so glad that you stopped by and took a look at our homeschool and what we do for the human body. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are planning to use for this year. If this is something that you are looking into or interested in, like, subscribe, and I will see you next week. Take it easy, guys. Bye. Gosh, mercy, mercy. Had a child chew on this. We should do another one. Let's do it one more time now. Uno más. Okay, don't open your mouth. So the science curriculum that we use that we're almost done with is the human potty. Not the human potty. Like, I don't know if you can see that. I'm sorry, I've got a hair here. I don't know, baby teeth aren't cute. I think they're cute. I just found my baby teeth, which was like absolutely horrifying. It was like in a little, envelope that my father kept. My father, mind you, he kept this for me. And he was like, Summer, I found your baby teeth. And he opens it up and it's all these like mutated teeth that are all like disgusting and old. And I'm like, oh, thank you. What do I do with this? Do I put it under my pillow? Will the tooth fairy revisit me? But now I have kids and I'm like, oh, look at your little tooth. I shall keep it in an envelope for you. So when you are like old and married and have children, I can be like, I found your baby teeth. I can't think of the word. Take a water break while I'm thinking about it.